What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Growing Smart, the Stronghold podcast, where I bring you rants and various other thoughts of the day, but hopefully helpful content is the main thing you will get. Now, I normally don't give any notice before I go live on these things, but today I gave an entire 15 minutes notice. Hopefully that was helpful. This morning in my private client group, we had a good conversation around the entrepreneur's time. I'm always asked, if there's one thing I've always been asked since I started doing sales training many years ago, leadership development, all those things, is how do I better manage my time? And after doing time management class after time management class, after bringing all these tips and tools and talking about time blocking and all this stuff, I have come to the conclusion that most of it is absolute garbage, because there are fundamental issues with entrepreneurs and really just anybody today that are keeping us from being able to implement even the simplest things. You can put a million things on your calendar. You can fight to be disciplined. You can do everything you think is going to be right. And at the end of the day, most of us will still not accomplish what we set our mind to because of other issues that the time management doesn't address. What a great illustration to kind of put this into a place where you can understand it is, you may be familiar with Dave Ramsey, right? Dave Ramsey is the very famous guy that gets us out of debt. Interestingly, he's talking about financial management, but people weren't coming to Dave Ramsey saying, help me manage my money better. They may have been saying that, but what they were really saying is, I got a ton of debt and I don't know how to use my money to make money. And what Dave Ramsey focuses on is one thing and one thing only, and that is getting people out of debt. Why? Because it doesn't matter how much we talk about managing your finances. If you're being crushed by debt, you can't do anything. You can do very little. But everyone wants to see where the next place is they can put money to make money or leverage money to make more money while they're drowning in debt. The same exact illustration applies to the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur sits here saying, help me manage my time better, help me leverage my time better. But they're drowning in overwhelm. They're drowning in scattered to-dos. They have no clear direction. And they'll go buy any program that makes it look like it's going to be easier, or they'll go do anything you tell them to do about time management, but they only get a little bit of margin one. They don't get very far at all. And the reason why is because they're drowning, absolutely drowning in overwhelm. So what do we do about it? I want to talk a little bit in the short podcast time we're going to have today on what you can do to get out of overwhelm right now. I just really want to click all those little graphics is what I really want to do. So I don't have a guest today. I'm just going to focus in on this topic. Now, again, 99.9% of the people I've ever coached have tried to resolve their time management issues. And I would say 3/4 of them, and I might be being nice, 3/4 of them are dealing with issues of overwhelm, not how do I manage my time better. And you would say, well, doesn't one solve the other? I mean, if I start time blocking and better prioritizing, isn't that just going to make everything fall into place? No, because we have the wrong mindset about time completely, and we're overwhelmed. Let me give you an example. So if you're an entrepreneur or whatever your business is, this really applies to even beyond entrepreneurs. If you started today, Monday, if you started today off and you really did not have a clear picture of what was going to be accomplished between now and Friday and how you were going to get there, and most importantly, how you were going to protect that time, your host. Listen, nothing goes as planned. So not only do you have to have that time planned, but what about margin? What about allowing for things to take longer than they're supposed to take? Have you planned, or do you have a system in place to keep distractions from coming in? Do you have ways to do that from keeping yourself from distracting yourself and from other things happening? And have you thought through your plans enough that you know exactly how much time it's going to take to get to where you want to get to a point where you know how much other stuff you can agree to. I am continually shocked at how much entrepreneurs will allow for time distractions, make commitments they can't possibly keep, and have 50,000 good intentions going on and very, very little, if any, execution. If this sounds like you, you're not alone. So what do we do about it? Well, what we do about it is first step. There's 3 steps. First step is we need to admit to our innermost self that we are overwhelmed and that we are in time debt. Instead of looking for some clever way out, or just like with the Dave Ramsey example, instead of looking for some clever way to leverage our money, we need to first and foremost admit we're in time debt. Just like if you were in financial debt, you've got to get out of the debt you're already in. You have to be willing and humble enough to admit that. That's step number 1. If you admit you're overwhelmed and scattered, then you have to be willing to say no to the vast majority of the things you're looking at accomplishing until you can accomplish a few of the fundamental things and begin snowballing further down the road. As Dave Ramsey would say, live like no one else today and you can live like no one else tomorrow. Manage your time like no one else today and you'll be able to have a lot more time like no one else tomorrow. So number 1, you got to admit that time debt is there. Number 2, you need to sit down and look at what you actually most important need to accomplish. What is the main thing? And what is the most direct path to getting there? So step number 1, admitting you're in massive time debt and overwhelm. Step number 2 is asking yourself, what is the most prioritized thing I can do? An easy way to do this, and actually if you go to my YouTube channel, Stronghold Training's YouTube channel, it's a long training, but I've got a 2-hour training on there where I go through goal setting. The first 20 minutes of that is talking about prioritization. You could just go watch the first 20 minutes. I break all of life's priorities into 8 different categories. You've got to know what's most important. We've got to stop trying to do everything. We've got to live according to priorities. And you're probably not sitting there taking notes, but I'll give you the 8 categories if I can remember them. Category number 1, well, you put them in the order that matters to you, but the categories are spirituality or faith, family, finances, work, education, social, that's like social life, community, which is more social cause, and education. Did I say education twice? Doesn't matter. Those are the 8. Those are the 8 categories. So I'll run through them again in case you actually started trying to write them down. So spirituality or faith, family, I did say education twice. 3rd is health, social, education, community. I'll just go through it in the, see, this is why when I do these podcasts, I got to think about what I'm going to say. I'm going to end up saying the categories wrong. If you're taking notes at home, again, it is spirituality, family, health, business, finances, education, social, that means like friends, and community, like social causes. There we go. I just give it to you in order that I can remember. So those are the 8 categories of priorities. Now, the fact of the matter is that while all of those things can be addressed in your life, they can't all be addressed with equal amounts of import. Each one has a different bearing. And so when it comes to getting out of overwhelm, the first thing you have to ask yourself is what is most important? You have got to approach it with an idea of a mindset of sacrifice over and above a mindset of efficiency. We think if we plan well, we'll get it all taken care of. But the reality is that you won't. The reality is that we must be sacrificial. And if we can't be on point and sacrificing the things that we need to, knowing our priorities, it won't work. This is different than what typical prioritization is. Typical prioritization is saying, I need to do this first and this second and this third. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying this type of prioritization. I'm going to do this and nothing else. Nothing else. That's the level we need. So number 1, admitting we're in massive time debt and overwhelm. Number 2, getting our priorities very, very clear, getting away from the means to an end mentality. I work so I can spend time with my family. No, which is more important? That comes first, sacrifice the other, period. You live that way. It's extreme. And then third, and probably most important for most of us, is you absolutely 100%, no holds barred, don't hold back, clear your calendar of everything non-essential. Non-essential. What's essential? The essential is going back to those priorities. And we continue to scale and sacrifice and scale and sacrifice back until literally every single week you have margin on your calendar. What does that look like? It looks like you know what you're going to get done, how you're going to get it done, how much time that's going to take, and when you're going to do it. That's what your calendar looks like. Then you know what's going to be opposed to those things, what distractions may come from your focus, and you spend your entire week absolutely protecting that time. And you don't try to fit in every single moment. You actually make this in such a way that you have margin between things, which means you're going to accomplish a lot less. And that's our problem. We aren't willing to accomplish a lot less. We always want to accomplish more. We believe too highly that we can get a lot more done. We believe higher in ourselves than we should. And so what we end up doing is actually getting nothing done because we're trying to get everything done. Everything is urgent and everything is important. So we actually accomplish nothing. We're constantly overwhelmed and we can't critically think about anything. The solution for this, guys, is radical. Just like the solution for getting out of debt, if you ask Dave Ramsey, is radical. Cut up all of your credit cards, stop using them, put $1,000 in the bank and use every single dollar you make to pay off your debt. That's radical. I'm saying do the same thing with your time. Cancel everything. Cancel your Netflix, cancel your Disney Plus, cancel your kids' soccer games, cancel everything because you're not spending quality time with your family, or you're not spending quality time in your business, whatever your priority is. Cancel everything until you can get the main thing under control and leverage your time appropriately, and then slowly add things back in. It's kind of like a radical approach to dieting. You've never eaten healthy your entire life. You think you're going to go follow some highly disciplined plan tomorrow? Absolutely not. What do you need to do? Throw everything in your refrigerator out. Just put healthy food in there, and that's all you're allowed to have until you get it under control. It's radical. You go, well, Thom, I can't maintain radical. Can you maintain the status quo? If the answer is no, get radical. It's actually easier. It's actually easier. So the way to do that with your time is I want you to look at your calendar, cancel everything that doesn't fit into one of those top 3 priorities you've identified. So if it's not in there, you cancel it. You just absolutely cancel it. You're done. What do you then do? Then you go and start putting things back in that you can manage. And again, you do it like this. What do I need to accomplish before you commit to anything? What do I need to accomplish? How am I going to get there? What are my exact actions I'm going to take? And when is it going to get done? And it gets put on your calendar with margin, not back to back to back to back. It doesn't work. This means you're going to do a lot less in your mind, but we actually do a lot more because very few of us accomplish many things well. If we're being honest, most of us, this is the hardest pill for us to swallow. If we're being honest, most of us sit there and think to ourselves with good intentions, I'm going to get all of this stuff done. And we can't do it. We just think, I'm going to get it done. But then we don't do it. We stay busy all day, so we feel like we're making progress. But at the end of the day, we've actually accomplished very little of the main things we intended to do. This is why we can't even get our New Year's resolutions beyond 3 weeks. We've got to get real. Stop allowing the norm to be our norm. Admit to our innermost self we're in overwhelm and time debt. We're not accomplishing the things we intend to. That should be a massive red flag. And you step in, you admit that, you readjust your priorities, you cancel everything, put your priorities in view, get a hardcore plan for it, massively protect that time, and you don't add anything else in until we do that. The problem is that we're not willing to let things go. We're not willing to say no to things. We're going to try to fit it all in. But the reality is most of us are in absolute overwhelm and not accomplishing our priorities. And to me, that's a tragedy. It's a tragedy to sit and coach with people who have had a good intention to do something really cool for many, many years and they never got it done. And they come to me as a coach and they think just sitting with me every week is going to make it happen. It's not. It's not. Life is a series of sacrifice for our priorities. You have got to determine what you're going to sacrifice for. That's the thing you're chasing. You've got to be real about that. If you're sacrificing your family on the altar of your business, you've got to get real about that. If that means you're making less money, then you're making less money. What about comforts? If you're sacrificing massive amounts of time that you could be spending on your health or family or faith so that you can have a really nice life, well, what are you serving? You're serving the nice life. Is there anything wrong with that? No, but you got to get real about your priorities. You got to get real about your priorities. And most people I find are overwhelmed with their time. Their life is passing them by massively fast and they're overwhelmed and they're not accomplishing a quarter of what they intend to because of this problem. Absolutely filling all the spaces. All right, a little bit of a rant and a soapbox today, but I'm hoping a few of you get real and get extreme. Dave Ramsey talks about gazelle intensity. He talks about that intensity of the gazelle when he realizes the predator has come into view. That intensity, that strength when they fire away to get out of harm's way. What if we looked at our overwhelm in the same way? What if we got gazelle intense about getting focused, sacrificing all the garbage, getting rid of it, and focusing on the things that matter most and not adding anything in until we're out of not underwater anymore? I hope that is a message that is timely for you. I can tell you that if it's a Monday and you're already overwhelmed and stressed and you just feel like you got too much to do, well, it's probably something to do with how much we believe we can get done. We are not able to be honest with our innermost self.